Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to take a look at what happens when you load a Minecraft world in a previous version, also known as downgrading. Let's get started. Here we are in a new world in Minecraft 1.21. I'm going to try and go back through every major version, so let's go back to 1.20. Let's load the world and see what happens. Here's the warning that downgrading isn't supported, but we're going to continue anyways. And don't try this with a world you care about, as it really isn't supported, as you will see later on. And here's our world in 1.20. Let's check if there are any terrain artifacts which appear when the terrain generator changes when upgrading a world. And the terrain continues as normal, which means that the terrain generation is the same. So you can play your 1.21 worlds in 1.20, but you probably shouldn't, especially with an important world. This is just an experiment. If you are going to try this on an important world, back up it first to be safe. Now let's go on to 1.19. And it worked. Let's check for artifacts again. It looks perfectly fine, but when I was testing this in some worlds I was getting crashes when trying to do this, so it isn't a good idea to downgrade to 1.19, even though it worked fine this time. Now let's go on to 1.18. And we're in, but this time the terrain generation is different, so we're getting terrain artifacts straight away. Now let's go back to 1.17. This time, however, it is gone as I expected. You can see the animals falling from their original positions where the terrain was in 1.18. That's why you shouldn't downgrade. There are some safe versions which we will explore now. Whenever the way chunks are stored changes, you can expect the downgrading to fail, as the game doesn't have a system to convert chunks like upgrading. That's why you can upgrade an old 1.2 world straight to 1.21, but you can't downgrade the 1.21 world to 1.17. The game tries to read the existing chunks but can't, as they are different, and just generates new ones and destroys your world. Now, let's go on to 1.16. And it worked, as the chunk system is the same, which makes sense as early on 1.17 was basically 1.18 before the terrain generation got reverted back to 1.16, when the Caves and Cliffs update was split into two parts. Now let's go on to 1.15. And it is gone again, which makes sense as 1.16 started moving world generation in JSONs for datapack compatibility. This time, however, I will place some gold blocks so it will be easier to notice if the world gets overwritten, as the terrain generation doesn't change for a long time. Let's go on to 1.14. And you may think it worked, but the gold blocks I placed are gone, which surprised me at first, as I expected these versions to be similar enough, but it seems the way that chunks are stored is different and the world got overwritten. The terrain generation, however, is the same, so we have the same terrain. Let's get to 1.13. And it got overwritten again, as you may notice from the missing gold blocks. For 1.12, which I know won't work as the game was changed heavily between 1.12 and 1.13, I will be making a new world with a mesa biome near spawn for some interesting effects later on. And here's 1.12. Let's make a new world with this seed, as it has a pretty interesting spawn, which causes some interesting effects once we go down to earlier versions. Let's again put some gold blocks in a few places so it will be obvious if the world gets overwritten. And before we move on to 1.11, here's the 1.13 world. And it got overwritten again. Now let's go on to 1.11. Here's the world in 1.11. As you can see, everything is okay. To save some time, all the versions from 1.2 until 1.12 can load worlds just fine, as the chunk storage method doesn't change. I will only show the versions which change the world generation and have some visible effects on the world. Here's 1.7, the last version with this terrain generation, just to show you it works fine. And now let's go on to 1.6, which has the older world generation. Here we are in 1.6. As you can see, we have lost our dark oak forest. When blocks don't exist, they just get removed, and you can notice in the mess all red sand is now regular sand, as red sand doesn't exist yet, but hardened clay does for now. Let's check out where the world generation changes. Now let's move on to 1.5. We have lost all the clay as well, and we have dark spots where the mesa was. If I cause the chunks to update, the lighting gets normal again. Technically, the mess will get ruined in 1.6 as well. I was using 1.6.4 for the previous part and hardened clay gets added in 1.6.2. Now, let's go straight to 1.2, the last version where we can load our 1.12 world. Let's go and check out where the terrain changes. Here the light is even more messed up and won't fix if I update the chunks. The game probably thinks there are blocks where the clay was. If you're wondering, going back to 1.12 won't fix the missing blocks. They're gone for good. Let's go to 1.12 again to check it out. As you can see, everything is still messed up. That's why you should never downgrade the world, at least without a backup. And here we have some corrupted chunks as well, which got regenerated as you can notice. At least the gold blocks are still here. Let's check how this looks in 1.21 so we can see everything at once. Here we are in 1.21. We no longer have the black spots as the modern game updates the lighting constantly. Let's check out the terrain artifacts where the different terrain generations meet. And now we can move on to the next compatible versions, which includes 1.1 to beta 1.3. Let's make our third world in 1.1. Let's place some blocks around the spawn and move on to 1.0. And everything is fine in 1.0 as it should be. Now let's go over to beta 1.8. The world loads just fine in beta 1.8, but the terrain generation is different. Let's check out the place where it changes. Here are the chunk borders where the terrain generation changes. Here I will place some new blocks so I don't have to walk 10 minutes as I will lose creative mode when I move on to beta 1.7 and terrain generation changes again. Here's the world in beta 1.7. Everything is fine. Let's check out where the terrain generation changes again. And now let's move on to beta 1.4 as I couldn't get 1.3 to start again. I got it to run once but it just crashes now. In beta 1.4 we have lost all the grass as grass didn't exist back then. Otherwise everything is fine. And now the last possible downgrades, from beta 1.2 all the way down to InfDev 2010-03-27. Here we are in beta 1.2. Let's make a world and place some blocks. Now, let's go all the way down to InfDev, as it will take ages to go through every single alpha and InfDev versions, but they do work, so let's skip straight to the first one with this chunk format. And here we are in InfDev. I'm pretty sure it will black screen once I load the world, but we should get a frame or two to see the sunblock I placed. And yes, it black screened, but as you could see the world was loaded and the sunblock I placed was there. And that's why downgrading is unsupported. It works fine in some cases, but it shouldn't be done as you risk your world. If you're not sure you will like a new version, better make a backup before upgrading and later restore it if you decide to go back. To summarize, you can go between 1.21 and 1.18 fine, but 1.18 will get you terrain artifacts. Then you can go between 1.16 and 1.17. You should never go between 1.15 and 1.13 as all of them regenerate the terrain. And you can go between 1.12 and 1.2. But if you go to a version which doesn't have some blocks, they will get deleted permanently. And after this you can move from 1.1 to beta 1.3 and from beta 1.2 all the way down to InfDev 2010-03-27. And that is all for this video. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe for more content. I hope I will see you again next time.